Berlin, May 1945. Kreuzberg district. The Third Reich is dying, but it refuses to fall quietly. American and Soviet forces converge on the capital from opposite directions, grinding through neighborhoods reduced to skeletal ruins. Fires rage unchecked. Entire apartment blocks have collapsed into rubble mountains. Civilians flee through streets cratered by artillery, dragging children and whatever possessions they can carry. The air tastes of ash and death. Among the ruins, a different kind of army has emerged, the Volkssturm. Hitler's final gambit. Old men with trembling hands and boys barely past childhood, handed rifles and told to defend Berlin against the most powerful military forces on earth. They wear mismatched uniforms scavenged from the dead. Most have never fired a weapon before last week. They huddle in blown-out buildings, waiting for orders that make less sense with each passing hour. 15-year-old Erich Bauer crouches behind a collapsed stone wall, gripping a Panzerfaust anti-tank weapon that weighs nearly as much as he does. His Hitler Youth uniform is torn and filthy. Soot streaks his pale face. His hands shake. From cold, from hunger, from something deeper he doesn't want to name. The weapon's metal feels foreign against his shoulder, impossibly heavy despite hours of practice drills. 3 days ago, Erich believed everything they told him. He believed in victory. He believed the Americans would torture prisoners, gouge out their eyes, commit unspeakable atrocities. He believed dying for the fatherland was the greatest honor a German could achieve. The instructors promised it. The newsreels proved it. The Führer himself guaranteed it. Now, watching smoke spiral into the gray sky, Erich wonders why victory looks so much like annihilation. The memories come unbidden, sharp as broken glass. 6 months earlier, the Hitler Youth Training Facility in Brandenburg, row after row of boys standing at attention, while instructor Kessler paced before them, boots clicking on concrete. Red banners covered every wall, swastikas everywhere Erich looked. The other boys stood rigid, eyes forward, drinking in every word. The Americans, Kessler shouted, spit flying from his lips, are not soldiers. They are mongrels, mixed races, corrupted blood. They will show you no mercy because they have no honor, no discipline, no culture. When they capture German soldiers, they torture them, they cut off fingers, they blind them, they leave them to die slowly in the mud. The instructor's face twisted with theatrical rage. But you are the Führer's final defense. Pure German blood, the last hope of civilization itself. If you hold the line, if you fight with every breath, the miracle weapons will arrive. Victory is still possible. The Führer protects those who remain faithful. The boys absorbed it like gospel. Erich felt pride swell in his chest. He imagined himself a hero, defending his mother, his city, his race. The thought of Americans filled him with righteous hatred, an emotion clean and simple, requiring no thought, only action. Another memory, softer, but no less painful, his mother's kitchen, days before deployment. She moved mechanically, preparing what passed for dinner in the 6th year of war, watery soup, a few crusts of bread. Her hands trembled as she set the bowl before him. She'd aged a decade since his father died at Stalingrad. Her eyes, once bright, had gone dull and hollow. "Erich," she whispered, glancing at the door as if the Gestapo might be listening. "When you go, do what they tell you. But come back. Promise me you'll come back." She kissed his forehead, and he felt wetness on her cheeks. Tears she couldn't afford to shed openly, not in a building where neighbors reported neighbors for defeatist talk. The kiss lingered, warm, desperate, final. He wanted to reassure her. Instead, he'd repeated the propaganda. The Führer will protect Germany. We'll win. You'll see. The lie tasted bitter even then. A distant rumble pulls Erich back to the present. Tank engines. Getting closer. The sound makes his stomach clench. Around him, other Volkssturm fighters shift nervously. Most are under 16 or over 60. One boy, Friedrich, is only 14, blonde, freckled, looks like he should be playing football, not holding a rifle. "You scared?" Friedrich whispers. Erich wants to say no. The words stick in his throat. He nods. Friedrich grins. Too bright, too forced. "Me too, but we'll be heroes, right? They'll write songs about us. The boys who held Berlin." Before Erich can respond, A shape emerges through the smoke at the street's end. An American Sherman tank, painted olive drab, rolling over debris with mechanical indifference. Infantry soldiers move behind it, rifles ready, advancing in practiced formations. Erich's training activates automatically. He hefts the Panzerfaust, lining up the sight. His finger finds the trigger. The tank grows larger in his vision. 50 meters, in 40 and 30. Now, someone screams. Erich fires. The weapon kicks violently. The rocket streaks toward the tank in a blur of smoke and flame, and misses completely, exploding against a building 15 meters behind the target. The detonation is deafening. Brick and mortar rain down. The tank's turret swivels toward their position. Return fire comes instantly. Machine gun rounds chew through the stone wall. Friedrich, standing 3 meters away, jerks backward as bullets punch through his chest. He drops without a sound, eyes wide with surprise, blood spreading across his uniform. The propaganda didn't prepare Erich for this, for how quickly death arrives, how random, how ordinary. Friedrich was talking 5 seconds ago. Now he's a corpse. Erich's courage, constructed from lies and slogans, collapses like the buildings around him. Terror floods in where certainty used to be. He drops the useless Panzerfaust and runs, scrambling over rubble, hearing screams and gunfire behind him. He finds a collapsed cellar entrance, squeezes through twisted metal, and burrows into the darkness beneath shattered concrete. The small space smells of mold and cordite. Erich presses himself against cold stone, gasping, crying, trying to become invisible. Above, boots crunch on debris. Voices call out in English, incomprehensible, threatening. The tank engine idles somewhere close. Friedrich is dead. The mighty Volkssturm scattered like frightened children. The Americans didn't torture anyone, they simply won, efficiently and overwhelmingly, because they were soldiers and the Volkssturm was a desperate fantasy. Erich closes his eyes and waits. For death, for capture, for something to make sense. Instead, he hears a voice speaking broken German from directly above his hiding place. Komm raus, Junge. Wir schießen nicht. Come out, boy. We won't shoot. Erich doesn't believe it. He knows what Americans do. The instructors explained it. Kessler swore it. But as footsteps approach his hiding spot, as rubble shifts above him, Erich realizes the propaganda never prepared him for this moment either. The moment when everything he believed meets reality, and only one can survive. The footsteps stop directly above Erich's hiding place. Dust filters down through gaps in the rubble. He can hear breathing, steady, controlled, the breathing of someone who's done this before. Not the panicked gasps of the Volkssturm boys, but the measured rhythm of an actual soldier. Komm raus, the voice repeats, slower this time, almost gentle. Wir schießen nicht. Erich's mind races through possibilities. It's a trap. They want him to emerge so they can shoot him in the open, or worse, drag him away for the torture Kessler described. He imagines pliers and knives, screams echoing in dark rooms. His body refuses to move. More voices now, speaking English. Rapid, clipped exchanges he can't understand. Then one voice rises above the others, sharper, urgent. Sarge, he could have a grenade. Step back. Let me handle it. Stand down, Jenkins. That kid nearly took out our tank 10 minutes ago. He's armed and... I said stand down. The authority in that second voice is absolute. The argument ends. Erich hears someone climbing over rubble toward his position. Stones shift. A beam of daylight cuts into his darkness as debris is carefully moved aside. A face appears in the opening. Dark brown skin, deep-set eyes that carry an exhaustion Erich has never seen in propaganda posters. The man is tall, powerfully built, wearing the uniform of an American sergeant. His helmet bears the marking of the 761st Tank Battalion. Most striking, most impossible, he's black. Sergeant Thomas Reed looks down at the terrified German boy and sees something that makes him pause. A child, filthy, starving, trembling, the same age as the other one. The one Reed shot 3 days ago outside Weimar. That boy had been firing from a church tower. Reed's squad returned fire. The body fell 3 stories and landed at Reed's feet, 14, maybe 15 years old, still gripping his rifle. The face was smooth, unmarked by time or war until that moment. Reed had stood there for 5 full minutes, staring while his men secured the area. Later, alone in his tent, he'd vomited. The boy's face had looked exactly like Reed's son back in Philadelphia. Reed takes a slow breath and lowers his M1 Garand. Behind him, Private Jenkins and 2 other soldiers keep their weapons raised, fingers on triggers. They've learned caution the hard way. Children have killed Americans before. Old men have killed Americans before. Trust gets you buried, but Reed saw enough death. He's 28 and feels 60. "Water?" Reed says, holding out his canteen. His German is terrible, but the gesture transcends language. Erich stares at the canteen like it might explode. His throat is sandpaper. He hasn't had clean water in 2 days, but accepting it means accepting everything else, that the Americans aren't monsters, that Kessler lied, that Friedrich died for nothing. Reed doesn't move, just holds the canteen, patient. His eyes aren't cruel, they're just tired. Erich's hand reaches out before his mind catches up. His fingers close around the canteen. It's dented, scratched, real. He unscrews the cap with shaking hands and drinks. The water tastes of metal and salvation. He drinks too fast, coughs, drinks more. When he finishes, he looks up at Reed. Their eyes meet. In that moment, 6 years of propaganda disintegrates like ash. "Up," Reed says, gesturing. "Slow." Erich climbs out of the rubble. His legs barely support him. He hasn't eaten properly in days. The world tilts, and Reed catches his elbow, steadying him. The touch is gentle, automatic, the way you'd catch any falling person. Jenkins moves forward, rifle raised. "Sarge, we need to search him. Could be carrying—" He's 15. Jenkins. Look at him. They all look. Erich stands there in his torn Hitler Youth uniform, weaponless, skeletal. A child playing soldier until the game turned real and deadly. His eyes are huge and shocked, still processing what just happened. Reed nods to Jenkins. "Search him." Carefully. Jenkins pats down Erich quickly, professionally, finds nothing. No weapons, no identification papers, just a photograph tucked in his jacket. Erich and his mother, taken before the war, when smiling was still possible. "So clean," Jenkins confirms, stepping back. Reed studies the boy. "What's your name?" Erich doesn't understand the English. He just stares. "Name?" Reed tries in German. "Wie heißt du?" "Erich," the boy whispers. "Erich Bauer." "Okay, Erich, you're coming with us. You understand? Prisoner. Gefangener." The word hits Erich like a fist. Prisoner. He imagines the stories again. Torture chambers, execution pits. His legs give out. He collapses to his knees, gasping. This is where it happens. This is where they hurt him. Reed kneels beside him. For a long moment, he just stays there, eye level with the terrified boy. Then he does something that surprises everyone, including himself. He takes off his helmet and sets it on the ground. Without it, he looks less like a soldier, more like a man. "Listen," Reed says quietly in English, knowing the boy won't understand the words but hoping he'll understand the tone. "I already killed one of you. One kid. That's my limit. You get to live, but you have to walk. Can you walk?" Erich doesn't understand the words, but he hears something in the voice. Not anger, not cruelty, something else, something that sounds almost like regret. Reed stands and offers his hand. Erich stares at it. In that hand, an enemy. A black American soldier. Everything the Reich taught him to fear and hate. But the hand is extended, open, waiting. Erich takes it. Reed pulls him to his feet and gestures toward the street where more American soldiers are gathering prisoners. A dozen Volkssturm fighters, mostly boys and old men, sit on the curb with their hands visible. None are beaten, none are bleeding. One elderly man is receiving medical attention for a leg wound from an American medic. Everything Erich believed is wrong. As Reed leads him toward the group, Erich realizes he's still alive, still walking, still human. The enemy who was supposed to destroy him just gave him water. Friedrich is dead. Kessler's promises were lies. The Reich is finished. But Erich Bauer is breathing. And somehow, impossibly, that matters. The prisoner collection point is a bombed-out factory yard on the edge of Kreuzberg. Concertina wire forms a rough perimeter. American guards patrol with rifles slung loosely over their shoulders, more bored than vigilant. The war is essentially over. Everyone knows it, even if the dying hasn't quite stopped. Erich sits on cold concrete among 30 other captured Volkssturm fighters, most are his age or younger. A few elderly men slump against the wall, grateful to rest. They all wear the same expression, hollow-eyed confusion, the look of people whose world has been turned inside out. No one is being tortured. No one is being executed. Instead, American soldiers distribute canteens, boxes of rations, wool blankets stamped with U.S. Army insignia. The items arrive like gifts from an alien civilization. A medic kneels beside a boy with a shrapnel wound in his shoulder, cleaning and bandaging it with practiced efficiency. The boy whimpers, expecting pain, but the medic works gently, murmuring reassurances in English that no one understands but everyone feels. Erich wraps a blanket around his shoulders. It smells of soap and something else. Normalcy, the scent of a world where blankets are manufactured in factories, not scavenged from corpses. He shares the edge with another boy, maybe 13, who shivers uncontrollably despite the covering. "They're not hurting us," the younger boy whispers. "Why aren't they hurting us?" Erich has no answer. The question loops in his own mind, colliding with 6 years of propaganda, shattering against reality. Across the yard, Sergeant Thomas Reed leans against a jeep, smoking a cigarette he doesn't taste. He watches the prisoners with the distant gaze of a man reviewing his own decisions, judging himself by standards that shift with every heartbeat. Private Jenkins approaches, helmet tucked under one arm. He's young, 22, still believes wars have clear sides. "Sarge, can I speak freely?" Reed exhales smoke. "You're going to anyway." "That kid in the rubble, he could have killed us. You saw him fire that Panzerfaust. He missed, but he tried. You risked the whole squad by not taking the shot." Reed flicks ash onto the ground. "Your point?" "My point is, we've lost men to kids like that. Bobby Harmon got killed by a 14-year-old with a rifle in Munich. You hesitated today. Hesitation gets people killed." Reed turns to face Jenkins fully. His eyes carry the weight of every decision he's made since landing in France 11 months ago. "I shot a kid outside Weimar. 14, maybe 15. He was firing from a church tower. We returned fire. I made the shot. Clean, professional. He fell 3 stories. He pauses, taking another drag. "You know what haunted me. How easy it was. How I didn't even think about it. Point, shoot, next target, like he wasn't a person." Jenkins shifts uncomfortably. "That's war, Sarge." "Yeah, that's war." Reed drops the cigarette, crushes it under his boot. "But that kid's face looked exactly like my son, Isaiah, 7 years old, back in Philadelphia. And I realized someone told that German kid the same lies, that the enemy is evil. That dying is glorious. We're fighting for freedom. That's different." "Is it?" Reed's voice sharpens. "That boy in Weimar died believing I was a monster, and I killed him believing he was the enemy. We were both right. We were both wrong." Jenkins has no response. Reed's voice softens. "I already killed 1 kid. Jenkins. 1 is my limit. Call it weakness. Call it hesitation. But I looked at Erich Bauer in that rubble, and I saw another chance. Maybe the only chance I'll get to do something right in this whole goddamn war." Jenkins nods slowly. "What if that mercy gets someone killed? Then I live with that too." Reed looks back at the prisoners. "But at least I'll still be living with myself." Across the yard, Erich watches the 2 soldiers talk. He can't hear the words, but he sees Reed's posture, the exhaustion, the burden. Their eyes meet. Reed nods slightly. Erich, uncertain, nods back. Minutes pass in silence. The sun breaks through clouds for the first time in days, casting weak light across the ruins. Erich holds his hands toward it, feeling warmth he'd forgotten existed. A guard approaches with a clipboard, calling names. Prisoners stand, shuffle toward waiting trucks. They're being transferred somewhere. Another camp, another processing center, the machinery of occupation grinding forward. When the guard reaches Erich, he stumbles to his feet. His legs are weak. The blanket falls from his shoulders. He bends to retrieve it, but a hand reaches it first. Reed stands there, holding the blanket. He drapes it back over Erich's shoulders, adjusting it like a father would. Then he reaches into his jacket and pulls out something. A chocolate bar. Hershey's. The brown wrapper catches the light. He places it in Erich's hands. "You can be a kid again," Reed says quietly in English, knowing the boy won't understand the words but hoping he'll understand the meaning. Erich stares at the chocolate. His fingers close around it. The wrapper crinkles. In this simple object, sweet, unnecessary, kind, everything changes. Friedrich is dead. The Reich is destroyed. But this enemy, this monster from propaganda, just gave him chocolate. Erich looks up at Reed. His vision blurs. Tears come without permission, streaming down his dirty face. He tries to speak, tries to find words in any language, but only sobs escape. Reed places a hand briefly on the boy's shoulder, then turns and walks away. Erich stands there, clutching the chocolate bar, crying for everything lost and everything found. 3 quiet days pass in the temporary holding camp. Erich and the others sleep on cots inside a gutted warehouse. The Americans feed them twice a day, bread, canned meat, weak coffee. After years of hunger, it feels like luxury. No one is beaten, no one vanishes. The war's last survivors drift between exhaustion and disbelief. Erich keeps the chocolate bar untouched. At night, he studies the brown wrapper under dim light. Hershey's, an American word, a foreign kindness. Every time he touches it, he remembers the soldiers' eyes. Tired, human, nothing like the monsters the Reich described. On the 4th morning, guards announce a transfer to a larger camp near Frankfurt. Trucks idle outside. Prisoners line up in silence. The air smells of fuel and cold iron. At the edge of the yard, Sergeant Thomas Reed stands with his hands in his pockets. He isn't assigned to the detail, but he came anyway. When Erich spots him, something stirs inside, an impulse beyond words. He leaves the line and approaches. Guards tense, but Reed waves them down. The boy stops a few feet away. Between them lies everything: war, propaganda, language, but also the fragile thread of something like trust. Erich reaches into his pocket, pulls out the chocolate bar, and offers it back. Reed shakes his head. "No, kid, that's yours." Erich hesitates, then clutches it to his chest. His English is halting, but he forces out 2 words. "Thank you." Reed smiles faintly. "You're welcome." A pause. Then Erich adds, shyly, "Water. Good." Reed lets out a low breath that almost becomes a laugh. "Yeah, water's important." They stand in silence. There's nothing more to say. Erich finally extends his hand. Reed takes it, a small, trembling hand, trying to belong to peace. "Go home," Reed says softly. "Be better than this war." Erich doesn't understand the words, but he nods. He returns to the line. A guard calls out names. The loading begins. Reed watches as the trucks start to move. Erich looks back once. Their eyes meet. Reed raises one hand. Erich mirrors the gesture. The convoy rolls west, engines rumbling through the ruins. A boy holds a chocolate bar in his pocket, a fragile proof that mercy can exist even in ruin. Beside the road, Reed stands until the sound fades. He adjusts his helmet, picks up his rifle, and turns back toward his unit. He saved one. Just one. Maybe that's enough. West Berlin, 1987. A classroom in a gymnasium near Kreuzberg, 42 years after the war's end. The neighborhood has been rebuilt. Modern apartments replacing rubble. Paved streets where craters once gaped. The scars of 1945 have mostly faded from the landscape. Not from memory. Erich Bauer, now 67, stands before 30 teenagers. His hair is grey, his face lined, but his eyes remain sharp. Behind him, a chalkboard displays a single word: propaganda. On his desk, photographs from the war, Hitler youth rallies, bombed buildings, and one photo, American soldiers distributing food to German prisoners. "Herr Bauer," a student asks, "did you fight in the war?" The question comes every year. Erich has prepared for it, but it never gets easier. "Yes," he says simply. "I was 15, Volkssturm. I believed lies I never questioned." The students lean forward. History is no longer abstract. "What changed?" another student asks. Erich reaches into his desk drawer. He removes something wrapped in faded paper, a Hershey's chocolate bar wrapper, yellowed and fragile, preserved behind thin plastic. He holds it up. "This," he says. "An American sergeant gave me chocolate when I expected death. He gave me water when I'd been taught he would torture me. That simple act destroyed 6 years of propaganda in one moment." He sets the wrapper on the desk carefully. "The regime told me the Americans were monsters. They told me lies and I believed them. But then I met the enemy, and he was more human than the men who sent me to fight." A girl speaks quietly. "Guy, what happened to him?" "I don't know," Erich admits. "I never learned his name, never saw him again. But I kept this wrapper for 42 years, to remember that truth doesn't come from flags or slogans." He looks at each student. "It comes from actions, a drink of water, a piece of chocolate, the courage to not pull the trigger. That sergeant taught me what it means to be human, and he was the man they told me to hate." The bell rings. Students file out. When the room empties, Erich carefully returns the wrapper to his drawer. Outside, Berlin continues its ordinary day. The wall still stands, but cracks are forming. History moves forward. And in a small classroom, an old man keeps teaching the lesson a young soldier taught him, that humanity survives when we choose mercy over hatred. The chocolate wrapper remains, proof that kindness, once given, echoes across decades.